Richie, probably the most frustrating part of the game yesterday, and I don't know if you watched Jeff after. Jeff doesn't do a lot of post games. They don't let him do a lot of post games, Jeff Cameron, because he's a little too honest. And
very
so
passionate.
I appreciate him doing the post game yesterday. This clip was sent to me. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get in trouble for playing other people's stuff. But to summarize, Jeff Cameron, legend in Tallahassee, the voice. Gene, I always say that Gene was the voice on the field on Saturdays for 3 hours, and Jeff is the voice of Florida State for however many hours during the
Monday
week.
through Friday.
Yeah, like he's the voice every other day. And so I appreciate Jeff. Jeff has always been great to us, and everybody listens to the Jeff Cameron show, and you absolutely should because he's the man. Jeff Cameron said he believes that Mike's lost the locker room. He says he thinks the team quit yesterday. We didn't talk about this much in the UNC recap. Wanted to kind of save it for this clip specifically. But we had been praising this team for the only thing we could outside of special teams for at least not quitting, at least not giving up. And yesterday they laid down like, sorry, you know what's, and just quit. And to me, that was the biggest sign. You've got a team in Gainesville right now, I guess they were in Jacksonville yesterday, who absolutely goes out there and lays their life on the line for a Billy Napier coach that is absolutely going to get fired at the end of this year unless they can find a way to win some games with a third-string quarterback. And they fight against the number 2 team in the country. If their quarterback doesn't get hurt, which all prayers up to DJ Lagway, that sucks so bad, and I do feel bad for them, even though they're Gators. That sucks. And they still fought. They still, with a third-string quarterback that their fans hadn't even heard of before, went out there and tied the game up in the fourth quarter against Georgia. That is on coaching. And this team, I think Jeff's right. He has lost the locker room. This thing is so far gone. You have nobody in that locker room that I believe, I think there are guys that care. I'll take that back. The large majority of this team does not care. And I don't blame them. You're 1-8 at Florida State. You're about to be 1-9. But this team has quit. And I think Jeff's completely right. The locker room is gone.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And, you look at, and these kids make money now. So let's name some names. Shaheem Brown, what are you doing? Like he clearly had no interest in making a tackle. The entire offensive line. Bo Atkinson came into this game with 3 sacks on the season, and he had 3.5 by himself yesterday alone. It's just embarrassing, and I don't think it's fair to try to evaluate the quarterbacks because of how bad the offensive line is, and your receivers can't catch, except Ja'Kai Douglas, who should be a number 3 receiver at best. But yeah, the team, they just played down. They didn't care. They didn't look like they wanted to be there. They looked like a team that is just saying, all right, what do we got? 3 more games after this, and then the season's over. That's kind of where they are. And it's just maddening that, why not play for pride? You have something to still play for. Play for the name on the back of your jersey. If you don't respect the name on the front anymore, it doesn't matter. But you're going out there every single weekend and making a complete fool out of yourselves. You're going to do the same damn thing in South Bend in 6 days. And it's just frustrating. And I do think the team has quit. And honestly, I did not think Mike Norvell would be a guy who could lose the locker room. I thought he was a good enough motivator and coach, and the players had enough belief in him that it would not be an issue. But he has absolutely, in my opinion, lost the locker room, at least this team in 2024, and there's no getting it back. You're going 1-2 at best, and honestly, a Charleston Southern win would not shock me.
I'll get right back to chatting with Richie, but first I do want to give some love to our friends over at the National Mango Board. I'm excited for what they've got coming, not only as we start to wind down here in the fall, get into winter sports. They've got a lot coming here in the spring upcoming as well. I appreciate the Mango Board for not only what they do for our channel, but also what they do for FSU Athletics. Stay tuned for their giveaways on their social channels. Stay tuned for the stuff that they'll do in person live with Florida State this fall, spring, winter, all over the place. We appreciate the Mango Board, again, for what they do for our channel as well. And look, we're not selling you anything. You don't have to go enter a code or click on a link. Just grab a couple of mangoes. The next time you're picking out fruit at Publix or your local grocer, make sure that you're giving back to the people that support us. If you want to tag them in a picture on social media, that certainly helps our cause as well. But we appreciate you guys for going and getting mangoes. We appreciate the Mango Board for always supporting us. Yeah, no, it's, again, you've got a Florida team that is not good right? Average. I'd say Florida's average. Like they've lost to some pretty good teams. Their losses are to highly ranked teams. And so, I mean, they're going to come in here and beat our ass with a third string quarterback that is from the Ivy League and we've never heard of.
Yeah,
But yeah,
their fans never heard of him.
yeah, the effort is just at the beginning of the year. I think you could kind of blame like execution and coaching and focus and things like that. It is effort, and he's lost the locker room. Guys like Pat Payton, who were supposed to be leaders on this team, I will say Farmer still ton of effort. Appreciate that. Daryl Jackson actually has played a little bit better here recently too. Shaheem Brown, again, no idea. He is looking at guys and just, yeah, that's yours, dog. We're getting blown out.
Yeah.
Who cares? I don't care about that Seminole
Appreciate
logo.
the field goal block, but put his ass on the bench. Put Peyton's
Don't
ass on the
care.
bench. Several other players that you could put their asses on the bench right now.
Jeff and Tom were talking about this yesterday. I had a 4-hour drive home after that, absolute embarrassment. And he said that the announcer, I didn't hear this obviously being at the game, but the announcer was talking about Cam Riley on the play at the goal line. He said, hey, that linebacker was there and filled the hole. But that linebacker, at that point, he was kind of trying to sugarcoat it to not call him out so directly. The exact quote was he made a decision on that play. It wasn't a business decision because that guy, nobody on this team really did, very few guys on this team really deserve
the announcer came out and said he made a business decision.
Yeah.
And for an announcer, a clearly unbiased announcer, he has no hatred towards Florida State whatsoever. And no allegiance to Carolina. But for him to come out and say that, when I was sitting on the couch, my wife had no idea what that meant. I'm like, did you just hear that? She's like, what's the big deal? I'm like, that was like one of the worst things an announcer could ever say about a player in a game.
Yeah, just completely calling out. Was it Luke Kuechly? Was that who the announcer was yesterday?
I'm not sure who it was.
I know it was a linebacker. I heard Jeff and Tom talking about it being a linebacker that had played and played at a high level, but I couldn't hear who it was. So anyway, whatever. It's not super important, I guess. But anyway, yeah, getting called out for just the lack of effort and laying down and quitting. Richie, I talked about this. The team is soft, and they've got a mentality of being soft, and that is just who they are this year. And again, you're not getting that back. But I do think that, when you think about the snub, and here we are, in November of, 11 months later talking about it, almost 11 months to the day, talking about it. I think that the snub did really break Mike Norvell, and I think it broke this team. And I'm not even really blaming Norvell for this. We fired him, 10 minutes ago or whatever. But I do think that when he preached all year, do the work, trust this, trust your training, do the right thing, and it will be paid off. That team last year believed that. And a lot of the guys on this team, it's I think it would have been really easy to change your, Mike said, I'm not using the snub. I'm not using that. Maybe you should have. Maybe you should have used the snub to say, we're going to prove everybody wrong. But he was so quick to distance himself from that, because I do think that I think what the snub did is it shook him to his core, because what he had preached to those guys for 4 years about not quitting, giving effort, work, doing the right thing, all those things, by preaching all of that, and then basically it being shoved back in his face like, nope, not good enough. Everything you just preached to these guys for 4 years and turning this around, climbing, just got shoved back in your face, and that is not correct. I don't think he knew how to coach after that. I don't think he knows how to motivate after that, because everything he had preached for 4 years just got proven to be wrong. And it's not his fault that it was wrong. I'm not saying that. It was obviously a very unfortunate situation that he got dealt with. But I don't think he knew how to pivot from there. And because of that, because it broke him as a coach, teams take on the mentality of their coaches, which, let's be very frank, our coaches here, and we'll talk about this in a minute, are not very good. And I think that they have taken on the mentality of being quitters and being soft. And I don't think it has anything to do with the Orange Bowl. I don't think that matters. But I do think that the snub broke him. What happened at the end of 2023 broke him, and it's what has broken this team as well.
He talks about response. How do you respond to things? And that snub gave him a great opportunity to truly respond. And, looking back in hindsight now, in the moment, I was pissed. I was furious, so I didn't really care. But just seeing Mike's reaction when his head goes down into his hands when they announced Alabama as number 14. I think that might actually be what broke Mike. It could be, because he talks about how you respond to anything is how you do everything, right? Well, he clearly has not responded well, because clearly this is probably another full segment for another podcast, another episode. Yeah, you went 13-0, but there were some flaws there. You just had a very, very talented team, and you decided to bring the whole gang back, the entire coaching staff, instead of making some changes, even though you knew now that it's out there, I'll say it. Keon Coleman was telling wide receivers in high school, do not come play for Ron Dugans. You knew that was happening. That wasn't a disguise. And I love Keon Coleman, and I love what he's doing for the Bills. He's one of the most hilarious guys I've ever seen, and I hope he continues to do well. But the fact that one of your best receiver last year, was telling high school recruits, you might want to look elsewhere because Dugans ain't it. And Mike said, "Oh no, we'll bring him back. Let's bring the donk back." Yeah, well, the donk is totaled. Get rid of that, and we're going to talk coaches in a little bit, TJ. I'm getting a little fired up right now.
No, you're fine. I want to talk Keon a little bit bigger picture too. I tweeted this from the Boston College game, and I had a few drinks during that game, and so and again, I heard this from somebody else, and I've gotten credit for it a couple of times, and again, this wasn't me. I didn't say this. Somebody else said this, and I stole it. I just can't remember who said it, and I was, a little feeling it at that BC game. So. But again, I think the best way to sum it up truly is what we've said before. The team in 2023 was hungry. They had something to prove. This team in 2024 that raked you over the coals and raked the battle's end over the coals for more money played like they were already fed. And they're soft and they don't care. Again, do some guys on this team care? I do think so. I'm not going to say everybody out there doesn't care. But for the most part, this team doesn't care. And, I think a lot of these coaches don't care. I think a lot of these coaches, we'll talk about this here in just a minute too, but I think a lot of these coaches know that what's coming as well. And, just kind of a piss poor effort. And it again, the one thing we were praising about this team was them not quitting, and they laid down and quit yesterday.
Yeah, they're done.
And it's I don't know what the spread is going to be for Notre Dame, but give me the Irish -1 million. So